Live.
Meeting will please come to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Wilmette. I'll now ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Sullivan, absent. Trustee Barrow.
Here.
Trustee Dodd.
Here.
Trustee Kurzman.
Here.
Trustee Kennedy.
Here.
Trustee Plunkett.
Here.
And President Belinsky.
Here, okay, so we have 6 of 7. That is a quorum. Trustee Sullivan had a family matter to attend to tonight. This meeting is being conducted remotely via the Microsoft Teams software. I'm going to ask Peter Skiles, our Director of Administrative Services, to explain some of the logistics tonight for members of the public who are joining us.
Thank you, President Belinsky. Okay, so everybody will have begun the meeting tonight muted, or you'll be muted here shortly. And later, when President Belinsky calls for public comment, those joining us with the Teams, the Microsoft Teams client, you can toggle your mute status by clicking on the microphone on the meeting toolbar. And those joining by audio conference dial-in can toggle their mute status by pressing *6. And just note that only attendees can unmute themselves. Nobody can unmute another attendee. So when it's your turn to speak, you've got to find that microphone and unmute yourself. And just in case you're having technical difficulties, just a quick note that you will be able to head over to the YouTube live stream, provide your commentary there, and I will read it back into the meeting here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skiles. For those watching this video in the future, the state of Illinois is currently under a gubernatorial disaster proclamation, which was issued by Governor Pritzker due to the coronavirus global pandemic. As a result, all in-person village governmental meetings have been canceled. However, the state has amended the Open Meetings Act to permit electronic meetings of government bodies like the village board during a gubernatorial disaster proclamation, and we are conducting our business tonight in compliance with the provisions of state law. As usual, this meeting is being broadcast live on our local access cable channel 6 and also on the internet, as Mr. Skiles referenced, on our YouTube live channel. The URL for that is www.youtube.com/user/Village of Wilmette/live. I will read that one more time for folks who may want to move from channel 6 to YouTube, www.youtube.com/user/Village of Wilmette/live. A recording of this meeting will be archived on the Village's YouTube website, as we do with all of our other televised public meetings. A remote meeting obviously requires a different mechanic for public participation, so to ensure that our residents, business owners, and other interested parties have the opportunity to participate, we have solicited public comment prior to the start of the meeting via email. So if you sent an email to publiccomment@wilmette.com prior to the start of the meeting, your email has been provided to board members and it will be included in the minutes of the meeting, but it will not be read during the meeting. Members of the public who are watching the broadcast can participate during our designated public comment periods by submitting comments through the YouTube live chat feature, and a member of the village staff will read your comment to the village board. And for those of you who have connected to the meeting via Microsoft Teams or via the telephone, at the appropriate time, I'll ask people to speak up if they'd like to make a public comment. Obviously, because of the logistical difficulties of not being together, we need a process, so I'll first just ask people to identify themselves as someone who would like to address the board, and then I will assemble a list and call on individuals person by person for their turn to speak. For people speaking during public comment, they will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board just as they are, just as they would during an in-person meeting. All comments from the public, regardless of how they are received, will be recorded into the meeting minutes, and I am going to mute everyone, including the trustees. And if you would please stay muted until you're ready to speak, that would be wonderful. Cut down on the background noise. Excuse me there. Before each meeting, the board receives a packet of agenda materials, and these materials are also posted on wilmette.com on the Friday before our meeting so that residents and other interested parties can review the very same materials which the board members received. This week's packet contained 504 pages. The next item on our agenda is item 2, public comment. At an in-person meeting during public comment, individuals are allotted up to 3 minutes to address the board on an item which is not on the agenda. However, as I said earlier, we are conducting this meeting remotely. So we have a different process. Public comments which were submitted by email in advance of the meeting have been provided to board members. They are part of the public record, but they will not be read during the meeting. I'll now ask people who are watching on YouTube Live to submit comments for the village staff to read. You can find the chat window to the right of the YouTube Live video window. So if you type in your comments there, Mr. Skiles will read those to us. While they are typing, I will ask if there's any individuals who have connected to the meeting via Microsoft Teams or via the telephone who would like to address the board on an item which is not on the agenda tonight. If there are such people, please identify yourselves now. And again, you do have to unmute yourself so that we can hear you.
Good evening, this is Peter Orr.
Okay, Mr. Orr, thank you.
Good evening, this is Kelly Mackey.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Mr. Orr, you have 3 minutes to address us on an item which is not on the agenda tonight.
So my comment is actually on the consent part of the agenda. Is this an appropriate time to make a comment?
Well, if you'd like to remove that item from the consent agenda, we can do that on the next section.
I don't want to remove it. I just want to make a short comment.
Okay, fair enough. Go right ahead.
My comment is related to 3.13, the recommendation for appointment to the Housing Commission. I, along with a number of, I should first introduce myself, Peter Sung Orr, resident of Wilmette. I, along with a number of other residents of Wilmette, have reviewed the recommendation memo for the individuals being selected for the commission, and would like to applaud President Belinsky and the members of the village for the thoughtful memo and work that was conducted in making those recommendations. That's it, short and sweet.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. I believe it was Ms. Mackey, was that right?
Yes, good evening. This is my husband, Greg.
Hi.
We just wanted to bring an issue to the board in relation to a recent construction kind of issue we had. We moved into our house in August, and 2 weeks after we were here, the village came out to inspect our water pressure problem and basically deemed the water pressure problem to be a water main issue on our end, and sent us a letter basically requiring us to replace it within 10 days. Within replacing it, turning the water back on, the water pressure was not improved. The village came back out and basically determined that there was a kind of major leak in the street on the village's side of the plumbing, water line rather. And once that was fixed, basically the water pressure was improved. So we're basically just kind of asking the village to consider compensating us in any form for the cost that was incurred for the issue that ended up being the village's issue as opposed to our issue.
So I think the appropriate line, I mean, the village board members don't handle the administration of the village. So Mr. Brayman, I see that you unmuted yourself. Will you reach out to the Mackeys and resolve this or interact with them on this issue?
Yes, we'll reach out tomorrow morning and get some more information and follow up as soon as we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Okay, Mr. Skiles, was there anyone who submitted comments via YouTube live chat?
One last check. No comments, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Skiles. So we'll move on to item 3, which is the consent agenda. So as described on the agenda, items which are routine business that are not normally debated by the village board are placed on the consent agenda. All items beginning with the number 3 are on the consent agenda, and tonight that means that is items 3.1 through item 3.20. Items on the consent agenda are up for approval tonight, and if an item is not removed by a member of the audience and is not removed by one of the trustees, the item will be approved and it will not be discussed. So before going on, I just want to make a comment that we are removing, or I will remove, item 3.6, which is Zoning Board of Appeals report case 2019-Z-35 for 1 Indian Hill Road. I will remove that from the consent agenda. My understanding is that there has been a change to the application, and at the advice of our corporation counsel, while I understand, or I believe that the parties have all resolved their differences, at the advice of our corporation counsel, we're going to pull that off a consent so that it can be on the record in the public meeting what the changes were, and confirming that people are in agreement. So with that said, let me ask if there's any member of the audience who would like to remove a different item from the consent agenda. People who are watching on YouTube Live should now also submit their requests via the chat window. So are there any individuals who have connected to the meeting via Microsoft Teams or via the telephone that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? I'd ask people to please identify themselves now if they'd like to remove an item. And again, you have to unmute yourself because I muted you. Okay, moving on. Were there any requests via YouTube Live, Mr. Skiles?
No requests, Mr. President.
Okay, are there any items that any of the trustees would like to remove from the consent agenda? All right, I see some nodding heads. No. All right. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
I think that was Trustee Plunkett. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Trustee Kennedy. So it's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Trustee Barrow.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Kurzman.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Plunkett.
Aye.
And President Belinsky.
Aye, so the motion carries. The consent agenda has been adopted. If you were here for an item on the consent agenda, it has just been approved. And to clarify for people who are watching or logged in tonight, again, all the items beginning with the number 3 have been approved, and that includes land use committee items 3.4 and 3.5. So if you were here for one of those items, it's been approved. There'll be no further discussion of those items or any of the other items on the consent agenda. So you're free to log off. Of course, you're more than welcome to watch the rest of the meeting. So moving on to item 4, which is report of officers. The first item is item 4.1, introduction of Jeffrey Head, Earl Chase, Caroline Goldstein, Lorelei McClure, Alyssa Morganti, Ryan Shanahan, and Lisa Williams, who are recommended for appointment to the Housing Commission. Before we go to that, I'd just like to provide some context before having everyone introduce themselves. And I would refer people to the memo that was included with item 3.13, which is the recommendation of these individuals for appointment. The actual vote on the appointments will take place at the next meeting. At this meeting, we're recommending and introducing. And the memo, I'll just hit some highlights from it, but the village engaged after the administration committee and village board's review of boards and commissions in the fall of last year. The village engaged in a process to communicate and recruit people for all boards and commissions, but in particular for housing and the human relations commissions. And as of mid-November, we had received 19 talent bank questionnaires that indicated an interest in serving on the Housing Commission. And that compares to 3 in all of 2019. So obviously the efforts of the village staff of getting the word out were effective. Now, in addition, given the Housing Commission mission and focus, I wanted to supplement that process, and to help identify the most qualified candidates, I reached out to 3 professionals that I knew in the affordable housing world, and I thought they might know Wilmette residents who also were professionals in the field. So to that end, I spoke to Jeff Head, who is actually going to be recommended as chair, and he's Vice President of Development for Habitat's Affordable Group. I spoke to Richard Koenig, who's the Executive Director of Housing Opportunity Development Corp., and then I spoke to Rob Anthony, who's the President of Community Partners for Affordable Housing. And board members know that both HODC and SEPA are doing work in Wilmette. Each of these professionals were very helpful. I had identified some of the individuals that they mentioned already in my sort of initial thinking, but they offered many new names to me as well. And as I said, I also asked Mr. Head to chair the commission, and he did agree to do that. So my memo highlights a bunch of areas of expertise that I thought would be helpful, including real estate development, or residential real estate development, development management and financing of affordable housing, urban planning, public policy and government, real estate investment and finance, construction, architecture and design, real estate zoning and municipal law, community outreach and advocacy, fundraising and philanthropy. And I'm just very excited. I mean, each of these individuals has experience in at least one, and some in more than one area. And I'm just very excited about what this exceptional group could be able to accomplish in the future. So with that context, I will introduce each of the people, call them up, ask them to unmute themselves, and ask them to give us 30 seconds or so on their background and their interest in the Housing Commission. I'm going to follow the order which is in the agenda, which is basically Mr. Head and then everybody else alphabetically by last name. So Jeff Head, if you are here, if you would unmute yourself, I see you. If you would unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the board and the community.
Thanks, President Belinsky. I appreciate you the time that we spent together talking about the formation of the commission, and appreciate the recommendation to the village board. I think you've assembled a very strong team, and the breadth of the experience of the team, I think, is going to be would be a great asset to a housing commission. And if approved, I would look forward to working with all of them and working with the village board on an important and complex issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Head. Earl Chase, are you in the meeting?
President Belinsky, I've tried to keep track of who's joining us, and Mr. Chase and Ms. Morganti are the two recommended appointees I have not seen sign on, although we do have 2 phone numbers, so I'm not sure that they are present tonight.
And you might have to, if you're dialed in by phone, you might have to both *6 yourself and unmute your phone.
Hear me now?
So, Mr. Chase, is that you?
Hi, this is Earl.
Earl, welcome. Please introduce yourself to the board.
Oh, the *6 worked. Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't able to get on Teams. I got on via the audio number here. Yes, Earl Chase. I live in Wilmette. I've known Jeff Head for some time, and he was the one that made the introduction to President Belinsky. So I'm happy to be considered for this opportunity. My experience is in the affordable housing space. I'm an executive director for a nonprofit real estate development firm based in Chicago. And I have a background in real estate investment and finance, and hope I can bring that to the commission and contribute in any way that my skills will be needed. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. And don't worry at all about a little delay in figuring out the *6. You're not the first nor the last person who will have the *6 issue. The next person on the list is Caroline Goldstein.
Hello. I'm really excited to be considered for the commission. I've lived here with my family in Wilmette for about 16 years. It's actually my second time living in Wilmette. I grew up in Wilmette in the 70s and 80s. So I'm really honored to be able to contribute whatever expertise I have to my hometown. I have a master's degree in urban planning. My background is in community development finance with a specific focus on affordable housing. I've worked for a number of public and private organizations supporting affordable housing, most recently National Community Development Financial Institution here in Chicago. In addition, since coming to Wilmette 16 years ago, again, I've spent a lot of time volunteering on affordable housing issues in Wilmette, most recently with the League of Women Voters, where I've co-chaired the affordable housing work that the League does. And I spent a number of years on the board of Housing Opportunity Development Corporation. So very excited to be considered for this commission.
Thank you. Next up is Lorelei McClure. Mr. Brayman, is Ms. McClure on, you think? And she may also have the *6 issue potentially?
She was on through Teams earlier. Now I'm not seeing her name, so she may have dropped off.
Okay, well, we'll come back and give it one more try there. I think board members have met Ms. McClure before. She's addressed the board a number of times over the past several years. And you weren't sure if Alyssa Morganti was on the line or not. But Alyssa Morganti, are you on the line? And again, if you're a 773 number, you may have to hit *6 as well to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, hello?
Yes, Ms. Morganti, I think we can hear
Okay.
you now. You may have to speak up just a
Okay.
touch.
Okay, sorry. Well, I'm flattered to be asked to be on the board. I am an architect and have been in practice with my husband for over 35 years. And we do a lot of work in Wilmette, the North Shore, and Chicago, and a lot of homes around the country. And we have been involved with Community Partners for Affordable Housing for about 13 years now, really trying to support their work, which we believe very strongly in their model and the breadth of services they offer people trying to find and maintain a home. So I'm excited to try and put some of my skills and architectural expertise to work however I can for the commission. And then we also did start a foundation to specifically try and bring affordable housing to Wilmette, because we think it's a very important part of the community.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Morganti. Ryan Shanahan is next on the list. Mr. Shanahan, are you on the line? I can see your name, so you are online.
Yep, I'm here. Good evening. It's a pleasure to meet many of you virtually. Look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully near future. I am a Wilmette resident, moved here in March. Pretty fresh to the neighborhood. Love my time here so far. I am received my MBA from Kellogg, majored in finance and real estate. I'm currently the vice president of development for JDL Development. We're a residential high-rise developer, primarily work in Chicago. We're currently underwriting a major land purchase, about 2,300 units, of which 10% of those units will be affordable and 5% of those units will be affordable built off site. So I'm intimately aware of the maybe some of the challenges that developers face, but also aware of how developers can overcome those, and look forward to bringing that perspective and expertise to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Shanahan. And then Lisa Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for considering me for this position. I have lived in Wilmette since 2007, and I'm actually a social worker by training. But the last 15 years of my career, I've been somehow a housing sort of utility infielder. I have managed affordable housing. I have developed accessible housing for people with disabilities, worked for the State Housing Development Authority, and I've really found my home in the last 5 years at a nonprofit that funds and develops housing for people with disabilities.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Now, I saw a 224 number join. Could that be Ms. McClure? And if it is, you have to hit *6 to unmute yourself. Not only unmute your phone, but hit *6.
Did that work? *6?
That worked. Welcome, Ms.
Oh,
McClure.
Hi, how are you all? I don't know that I really need to say anything. I can hear you all along. And Mr. Belinsky certainly said, I think you guys all know me. But I'm certainly honored. I'm honored to be considered to be on this housing commission. You all know that. And I believe that it is essential for us to have all of humanity living together. I'm retired, so I don't have a lot of resume issues to share with you. But I think you know that it is my true understanding that we need to be living together. As much of inclusion as we can have, representative of all humanity, in order to live in peace and to have all those things that we all say we want: love, acceptance, respect, honor. And so I am quite happy to be part of this if I'm accepted. And also, I think you know I live in affordable housing. That's a long story. I've been on the other side of that, and I am just grateful that I have had that possibility open to me. And thank you for considering me.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. On behalf of the entire village board, I just want to thank all of the individuals here who have volunteered their time for the Housing Commission. The expertise here is tremendous. It is a time commitment. A lot of Wilmette residents are very busy. They live busy lives. They have families. They have careers. And taking time out of your career to give back to the community is admirable and appreciated. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank all of you for raising your hand, for volunteering, and for ultimately agreeing to serve. And as I mentioned at the outset, the process we undergo from a technical point of view is that the recommendations were made tonight, and then 2 weeks from now at our regular meeting, the village board as a whole will vote on the appointments, and that's typically on the consent agenda. And we certainly don't require you to show up again for that, but we do appreciate you taking the time tonight to introduce yourselves. So thank you all again.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, we have the report from our village manager, and I'm going to mute everyone again because a bunch of people were on and off, and we'll just do that. So Mr. Brayman, you're going to have to unmute yourself because I just muted you.
Okay, thank you. Got it. Thank you, President Belinsky. I have one item tonight. We've understandably received a number of inquiries from residents regarding the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. I just want to let the community know that Cook County Department of Public Health is responsible for the vaccination process and administrative and distribution of such in our community. We are pushing the county to expedite the rollout, and we've offered our assistance wherever we can to try to get that vaccine to our residents as quickly as possible. We've created a web page on our website that's linked off our homepage that has the most current information from the county, the state, and the CDC on the vaccination process. And we'll also be keeping the community up to date through e-news. So we'll continue to provide updates as we get them, and we'll continue to push as hard as we can to get our residents the vaccination as soon as we can. And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Brayman. Next report is from our Corporation Counsel, Mr. Stein.
I have no report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Next item on the agenda is item 5, which is the report of the Liquor Control Commissioner, and there is no report tonight. So we will move on to our standing committee reports. First up is the Land Use Committee and Trustee Barrow. And, take a drink of water, Trustee Barrow. You got there's some words here on this motion. Oh, now you're muted because I muted you.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you, President Belinsky. We have item 3.6. So I move to approve case number 2019 Z35, 1 Indian Hill Road, a revised request for a variation to permit the expansion of illegal non-conforming uses, club and golf course, a 25.0 foot north side variation adjoining a street setback variation, equipment wash storage, a 30.0 foot rear yard of a double frontage lot setback variation, dumpster pad, a special use for 3 accessory buildings, each in excess of 200 square feet, a 2,028.25 square foot south side yard adjoining a street impervious surface variation, a north side yard adjoining a street impervious surface variation not to exceed 2,000 square feet, a 2.0 foot fence height variation, and a fence openness variation to permit the construction of a 1-story employee center, a 1-story equipment wash building, parking lot, and other site improvements at 1 Indian Hill Road in accordance with the amended plans as submitted. The use shall run with the use. Adoption of ordinance number 2020-0-6.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's Trustee Dodd, I believe. Okay, so this is the process that we're going to undergo here. There were some neighbor concerns. The applicant addressed what I believe was the final neighbor concern, but what I'd like to do is call up the applicant, and if we could via technology get that site plan that was submitted this afternoon up on the screen, that would be wonderful. But just call up the applicant to confirm that indeed removing the parking pad on the northeast corner is their amended application. I will then ask the Nelsons if they are on the phone, and they may or may not be on the phone. I'll ask the Nelsons to confirm that that is satisfactory from their point of view. I will then open it up for public comment in general, and then we can bring it back into the board to see if there's any other matters to discuss, because at this point it's my understanding that this was really the only issue outstanding. So with that introduction, and there will be plenty of time if there are other issues that I'm unaware of, either from the public or from the board itself, there will be time to discuss those. But so I'll call on the applicant first, just to confirm that, and if the staff or the applicant can manage to get the site plan on the screen, that would be wonderful. Looks like Mr. Adler's put it up. Okay, great. So would the applicant please introduce themselves and just confirm that indeed this was their approach that they'd like to take now?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the audience tonight. My name is John Talty. I am an architect with OKW Architects in Chicago, the author of this plan, and for full disclosure, I'm also a member of Indian Hill Club. As we've gone through this process, this is a complex site in a complex location within the village, as the buildings and the site planning has evolved, I think the one sticking point that we continued to have was relative to the north side of the existing maintenance building. It's the northeast corner of the property. It's a hatched area on the plan that you're looking at right now, with a note in the middle of it, area to remain as is.
And that's in the bottom right, notwithstanding north normally being north the way this is
correct
laid out. It's in the bottom right.
Yes, the bottom right. I apologize for that. So going back and forth with the Nelsons regarding how we could address this issue, in previous iterations of this plan, there was a concrete pad off of the entry drive that was to be utilized as a staging area for materials and equipment as it came in and out of the site in what was intended to be a very temporary kind of manner. After lots of conversation and discussion with leadership at the club, with the Nelsons, with the village, the club would ask that we leave the area as is, and that the usage of the area in question remain as is, and the pad is removed, and it will no longer be functioning as it was intended to prior as a concrete pad for storage on the north side of the building. Right there where the cursor was just a second ago.
Right. Got it. Okay, and then that's the area now where there's some bushes. I was out at the site this morning, and there are bushes there. That's the area we're talking about?
Yes, the landscape remains as is. Everything remains as is. It's going to continue to function as it has and always has, relative to the operations of the maintenance yard and the club itself.
Okay, very good. So I see, I believe it's Mr. Nelson is in the meeting right now. Mr. Nelson, if you would unmute yourself. My understanding is that was basically your ask, that either the pad be removed or that it be relocated elsewhere. And just if you would confirm that indeed that the club's adjustment works to your satisfaction, that would be great. Well,
okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes.
I say I'm on. Okay. Yes, that was part of our ask, and yes, we are satisfied with Mr. Talty's solution today. We still need a little bit more definition as to what remain as is means, because I think it actually means tear everything out that's there and replace it with just normal grass. But we understand that that's the prerogative of the golf course too, if that's in truth, that's what it is.
The landowner.
The landowner, whatever. The only other issue we have is if the golf course is also saying that it will remain as is, which means it will be unoccupied grassy knoll, for lack of another term.
Mr. Talty, is that the case, that it's not going to be occupied?
Yes, sir, it is. We had not had time to revise all the exhibits, given the kind of the late conversations that were going on regarding this. So really the exhibit, which is identified as a draft, site plan draft, really focused on the removal of the pad and the paving that was associated with it. But the intent is to leave the existing landscape existing as it is right now and not have it be a grassy knoll, but just leave the function, just aesthetically leave it the way it is today.
And so in essence, you're not moving the fence.
No.
In the original plan, the fence was going to move from the side of the maintenance building. That fence is going to remain. The bushes are going to remain to the north of the maintenance building.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Nelson, that answers your questions?
We are delighted to hear that.
Great.
It's delightful news.
Thank you, John.
You're
and
welcome.
thank you.
And thank you to the
Trustee
golf
Barrett.
course, the club. Thank you.
Okay, I will now actually open it up to public comment to anyone, not just the Nelsons and the applicant here. And then board members, I'm coming back to you. At an in-person meeting, I would ask for a show of hands to see if there's anyone who would like to address the board on the application. But as we've said already in the meeting a couple times, this is a remote meeting. So if you are watching on YouTube Live, you can submit comments for the village staff to read, and that chat window again is to the right of the video window. And if there are individuals who are connected via Teams or the telephone who would like to address the board at this time, please identify yourself. I will create a list, and then I will call on people individually. And again, I've muted everyone, so you have to unmute yourself if you would like to address the board on this application. Okay, hearing none, I will close public comment. Mr. Skiles, was there anyone who submitted anything via YouTube Live?
Yes, President Blinsky, but it was for the previous item. We had moved on before the comment appeared in the chat. Cindy Fay did comment, bravo and brava to the new appointments to the Housing Commission. We appreciate and support you. That is the only comment thus far, President Blinsky.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Skiles, and we'll include that in the record for the prior matter. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the trustees. This came to the board with a positive recommendation from the zoning board. There was the outstanding matter of the neighbors' concerns. The club has addressed those concerns, as the neighbor has confirmed. So are there any questions that the trustees have for the applicant at this point in time? Okay, hearing none and seeing some nodding of the head, is there any discussion from any of the trustees?
I would simply add that having lived in this neighborhood, just a few houses away from the club's maintenance facility for many years and walking by it daily, that I think the club is to be commended for the responsive way that they have put this project together, responding to the comments and the suggestions of the zoning board and the appearance review commission, as well as the neighbors certainly living on Kenilworth Avenue, and most recently responding to the concerns of the Nelsons. So I think this is a really appropriate project, and I think it accommodates both the club's needs and those of the nearby neighbors. So I thank everyone that took the time to participate in it.
Well put, Trustee Barrow. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, if I may? That's Jeff.
Yes, Jeff.
Just want to make sure that everybody understands that the ordinance that's in the packet will not be the exact language of the ordinance with these amendments. So I will address that in the next hour or two. And the signed ordinance, or the ordinance that will be presented for signature will be slightly amended to reflect the amendments here today. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Right, and Trustee Barrow's motion, most of you probably weren't following along like I was, and I saw the spots where he slightly changed the motion to reflect the smaller amount of impervious surface and the setback, I think, as well. So, all right, board members, any questions for Corporation Counsel on that? All right, any further discussion? All right, I would ask Mr. Hallgren to please call the roll on the motion.
Trustee Barrow.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Kurzman.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Plunkett.
Aye.
And President Belinsky.
Aye, so the motion carries. The ordinance has been adopted. Back to you, Trustee Barrow.
No, nothing else. All further items were on the consent agenda.
Finance Committee, Trustee Kennedy.
All items on the consent agenda tonight?
Administration Committee, Trustee Dodd.
All items were on consent.
The Municipal Services Committee had 4 items on the consent agenda. Public Safety, Trustee Kurzman.
No report.
Judiciary Committee, Trustee Plunkett.
One item that was on consent.
Item 6.7 is report from our special committees. There's no reports from our special committees tonight. Item 7 is new business. There's no additional new business to discuss. So we'll move on to item 8, which is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
That was Trustee Kennedy. Is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Plunkett beat Trustee Dodd. I saw she started. We are in a remote meeting, so the clerk needs to call the roll on all of our motions. So, Mr. Hallgren, would you please call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Trustee Barrow.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Kurzman.
Aye.
Trustee Kennedy.
Aye.
Trustee Plunkett.
Aye.
And President Belinsky.
Aye, so the motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.